Thank you, everyone. Thank you all who have joined today UG meeting. My name is Yawer Iqbal, and I have joined from Melbourne, Australia. Here, time is about quarter past nine. So probably I should not say good morning, but greetings, depending your time zone. And I guess in DC it is evening. So greetings, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending your time zone. And before beginning, I want to say thanks to organizers and all supporters of this of DC user group. I know about Kelly, Aidan, Nelson, but I hope there are a few more people which I may not be aware. And thank you all. And it is an honor for me to be here. About accessibility, I am presenting today accessibility for Dynamics 365 projects, basically Power App projects. And accessibility can be categorized depending over projects. It can be categorized as a functional or non-functional requirements. And this presentation will revolve around three basic concepts. We will try to understand the importance of accessibility. Secondly, we will go through and have a little try to establish an idea how to achieve accessibility. And in third part, I will share my experience of making Power App projects accessibility compliance and anything relevant to accessibility which is available in Power App words. And before proceeding further, I will quickly introduce myself. I live in Melbourne, Australia with my family. I have 12 plus year experience in software development. And as a few years back, when I was working on a federal government project, that time I got a chance where requirement was to make project accessibility compliance. And that was a time when I started taking interest in this area and got some learning. And I'm also involved in some community work as a blogger and as a speaker. And here are my contact details. I usually try to say if you like, feel free and please if you like get involved, be social, and if you like tell community about the today's event and today's meeting. These are some of the hashtags which can be used. To narrate what is accessible, to narrate what and why of accessibility, I have created next slide. And this slide basically portrays a few thumbnails which I have placed randomly, and you can recognize some of these faces. Some of these are Microsoft MVPs, some are not, and some of these people have more contributions than other. And overall, the thing is, as a community, they are doing a good job. Of course, we acknowledge them. But if you notice the title of my slide, I have tried to also show people from different countries, different backgrounds or cultures. And these are really beautiful differences. And we call them diversity. But a few times, differences among human beings are not just about first language they speak or culture they follow, and sometimes they are different due to they lack some natural ability, and sometimes they lack some natural abilities which other people have. Painfully, I'm talking about disabilities here. I have a quote from World Health Organization report, and it says around 15% of the world's population has some sort of disability, and it is around 1 billion people. And don't think only disabled people who have disability they need support in terms of accessibility. Actually, other than people who are disabled, there are more people which need some sort of accessibility support. So almost uh, 1 in every 5 people need some sort of support in accessibility requirements. Relevant to disabilities issues, which I mentioned previously, there can be different type of disabilities. These can be partial or complete functional blockage, and some people may have one or more than one disabilities. And to cover those natural abilities and to continue their daily life working, people use some sort of devices or applications to do their day-to-day job. And following accessibility guideline, we can design products or services which in our case are apps, power apps, which are which are accessible to people who need additional requirements, who have additional needs basically. And luckily this is something is already understood in our society, and facilities and services are being designed keeping these requirements in mind. And IT systems, and in our context, of course, apps are not an exception. Another good thing is when we consider when we start looking and taking care of accessibility, not only people who have disability get its benefit. Actually, general public also get benefit from accessibility. Who else get benefit from accessibility? There are a few situations. For example, sometimes people have temporary disabilities. People may have situational limitations, elderly people and smart device users, inexperienced technology users, and a few more. In next slide, I will just try to quickly summarize. Basically, it may not be like a very bookish sort of definition, but generally what understanding we have got is accessibility is basically designing or making services or apps in a way so it is accessible and usable by maximum number of people. And basically it is just about creating a better user experience. Why we should care for accessibility? Of course it is a social responsibility, and all theologies suggest us don't to discriminate with other people, especially people who have any sort of disability. But another very important factor is in almost major countries of modern world, law prohibit us to discriminate people based on their disabilities. And not only due to these ethical need to be taken care of accessibility, actually there are a few business benefits as well. And on top of these are business can cover wider audience and they can provide better services. And that covers basically a sort of introduction and importance of accessibility. Next, we will try to see a few basic details like what would be the process on how to achieve accessibility in a project. WWW Consortium or W3C is our international community for web standards, and same community or organization, they basically look after accessibility standards. WCAG or WCAG is a sort of standard which deals with accessibility, and they have published web content accessibility guideline. Let me bring my pointer. So yeah, so basically with WCAG is sort of standard document or guideline which people follow. WCAG has two versions. 2.0 was released sometime around December 2008, and 2.1 version is the latest one, and that was released in 2018. So basically, it is just basically it is not two, two, 2.1 basically is just additional guidelines, and they are basically addressing our modern smart devices, cognition, and low vision. So whatever is mentioned or covered in version 2.0, it is still valid and applicable. Under both of these versions, there are three different levels available which a project or organization can aim to achieve. Uh, it is A, double A, and triple A. With A, there are basically the thing is A is the easier one to achieve. Double A, we first need to be achieve A level, and if we wanna achieve triple A standard, we first need to achieve A and double A as well. So A is easier to achieve, and basically whatever we do to achieve the minimum standard, it as it is applies to the next level of standard. And it depends on organizations or public sector public sector organizations, whatever standard they are following and what they want to achieve. Here is a little maths, like under under both of these guidelines, how many guidelines or rule we want to follow or be validated with. And if with 2.1 version, to achieve A level, we need to follow 30 guidelines. For double A, these are 45, and triple A, these are 66 guidelines. And basically, as I mentioned before, WCAG guidelines are basically sort of core and reference material for accessibility. And these are really very nice and reasonably well explained documents. They basically tell about what is intent of a guideline, its benefit, examples, some related resources, and also it gives some ideas like if for an app some accessibility limitation is there, what can be possible solution to fix that. So that is really a sort of reference material. And of course, for when we are testing our apps or services, we need to use some accessibility testing tools. And luckily, there is a big variety of tools available. I think there are 100 plus tools. Some of them are free tools, but others are paid, and they are available in almost all versions, desktop, browser add-ons, and services as a software as a services as well. And they are available manual and automated versions too. And here I will just try to connect the dots, whatever we have covered until now. So basically WCAG 2.1 extend 2.0, and both of these versions have three levels, which are A, double A, and triple A. To make an app accessibility compliance, we use testing tools and fix those issues or violations against WCAG guidelines by as per suggested possible solutions. And usually to achieve this, or usually to get app compliance, usually businesses hire organizations which are specially providing services in this area. They test and provide guidelines what needs to be done to fix. But by all means, if we have some basic guidelines, our agile team can pretty much work with that as well. And if someone wants to learn more about accessibility, uh, Web Accessibility Initiative and Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, both of these portals and resources are maintained by W3C. They are free, available, and can be used to enhance understanding about accessibility. And this brings me to the almost last section, which is accessibility for Power Apps. Before I go into further details, I will share when I got a chance to first time work with making a Power App project that time, which was Dynamics 365 CE, and it was, I guess, services implementation, I guess. Uh, we hired that, and that was for a public sector organization. We hired a special testing team, and there were a few issues reported. I will quickly show a few of those things, and from there we will continue further. Since that project was with legacy UI, we found sometimes people with some special needs, they need to enlarge the size of font. And when testers try to enlarge and make the size bigger, text was becoming invisible or thus shrunk in a strange way, which don't make it readable. Another thing which reported was tab orders. A few components, they don't have very decent tab orders. For example, this sort of control uh, experience was, if we keep pressing tab, it just keep moving between these three fields. It never, expectation was by pressing tab after done button, it should go back to next next available field, or whatever tab is next. That is another observation was, for a user who is using maybe just keyboard or just tab, if they just keep pressing tab, subgrids, they just start giving a little weird sort of look, where data part become separate from headers. And that was another observation, like when a few times they try to use keyboard for even for empty fields. Basically, there was some sort of probably HTML character which for with readers, which was just causing interruptions. And since these were sort of issues we were not able to fix by ourselves, and so department contacted Microsoft, and the suggestion from Microsoft was to try to adopt unified interface, as unified interface was designed keeping accessibility in mind. And legacy UI, Microsoft suggested they are not going to do anything further for improving its usability, and it will not be supported, of course. So uh, these were a few examples, but there are more issues with legacy. There were a few more issues with legacy UI. And in short, legacy UI was not very ideal for accessibility. So with unified interface, I will quickly go through all of these problems which I showed. They were fixed. For example, this screen shows a very bigger zone size, font size, but still it is properly readable. Doing same exercise, pressing tabs, that sort of separation of data and headers was not happening. And for empty data, I mean, that sort of weird or just empty character, that was not happening. And there was a standard way, like when there is no field, no data, these characters are appearing, which is readable by screen readers. And a few more quick summary about unified interface. It has more than 100 keyboard shortcuts, which help people who want to use applications from keyboard. And unified interface work better with screen reader. And Microsoft recommend narrator, JAWS and NVDA, they are widely used. And of course, overall unified interface has better UI. Now, uh, since for achieving accessibility standards, we often have to use testing tools. But here are two sort of tools which are available as a part of Power Apps, and they can help in ensuring and making our apps accessible. Solution checker, it has a few it check a few things in terms of accessibility, but more specifically I want to mention under Canvas app we have app checker, and it really it really does a great job and list all violations and everything which as a maker or as a developer we can do to improve accessibility. And just have added here a screenshot to reflect that. And the good thing is these hints or reports are very comprehensive. It exactly tells what needs to be done and where we need to fix the issue. Generally, since many of us will have a background of Dynamics 365, CE or native apps, we might think what accessibility level those applications have. And this brings me to the next slide, and I want to introduce Microsoft Accessibility Conformance Reports. And this is a sort of portal or area of Microsoft website there where Microsoft has published uh, published reports relevant to almost all Microsoft products. They basically give details. Basically they are not telling like what level a product is. So they are not specifically saying Dynamics 365 for marketing is has achieved level A or double A or triple A. Basically, they have done some studies, and these reports basically tell which accessibility criteria applied to a certain application and what things are supported or not supported, and if there are like something not applicable. So all these sort of details. And as I mentioned, this area of Microsoft Portal have reports relevant to almost all Microsoft products. Previously, there were I think last reports were a few years back, and they were based on legacy applications, but legacy user interface. But now Microsoft have recently published latest reports, which are maybe a few months back, and they are based on unified user interface. What we should test, ideally, it will depend like what sort of app we have, but generally it can be portals because portals are most of the time public facing. We can make our web resources accessibility compliance, Canvas app, modern driven apps, and of course native apps as well. I think I have missed here, but if we are using any power, we are developing any power power app components, I guess that would be another thing where we should consider accessibility. About making project accessibility compliance, here are a few things which I learned in my experience. When first time we did, it was not a sort of requirement from the beginning. We already were working for almost 10 or 11 months, and later we come to know, okay, accessibility will be also something we will be considering. And it creates some problems because already there were some customizations and configurations, and we have to redo some work. So based on this experience, if you are going to consider accessibility, I think best is to decide earlier. Having a little team training for whole team, and it will include testers, consultants, business users maybe, and even analysts. Giving them a little guideline what accessibility is, what things we can do. This way, as a team, they will be working to maintain the and achieve those standards. One thing which we done was later we included accessibility as a part of our definition of done. That is another thing which can help progress gradually. As it can be sometimes challenging, so maybe it can help in the beginning if a project try to achieve just level A. Once that is achieved, maybe then try to level double A or triple A. And there are resources available if something you need help relevant to that. Even from Microsoft, the link of the portal which I mentioned, they are pretty much good in providing guidelines or answer any questions. And even other than Microsoft, there are good communities available which can support and which are encouraging people and businesses to uh, try to make their applications and services accessibility compliant. Here are a few links which are relevant to accessibility, and they can help. And that is pretty much all. Uh, that is what I was going to cover today. And here are my connection details. In case we are not connected, please connect. And with that, I'm saying thank you. And if there is any question or something I can explain, I will try and will be happy to for any discussion. Thanks all. Thank you.
Yes, this is Rob. First of all, great job. I don't know whether we have folks who do much work in the federal government. Um, you may have alluded to this, but in the U.S. federal government, there are lots of there are something called 508 compliance. Section 508 is the legal mandate that web-based apps have to be compliant with certain usability requirements like this, and it's actually fairly specific. You can actually find information on the Microsoft website where if you go and look at I forgot, I guess their trust center has a list of kind of regulations they comply with, and it talks to how they comply with U.S. Federal 508 compliance. But what one question I have is, I guess what experience have you had with various? Are there good palettes, for example, for colorblind, or that can be used for Power BI or even for Dynamics charts that you may be aware of?
Actually, I have not done a lot with Power BI in terms of accessibility, but I guess there are two things which I want to mention, which might be helpful. From the same source which I mentioned before, Microsoft's portal for providing accessibility guideline, there is a report available for Power BI as well. And another bit can be, I think most of the time charts and these things are customizable. And one thing can be done is easily what we can do is we can just maybe install a browser add-on or any testing tool which tests its visual effects. So that can be done like having whatever charts we have, we can test and see if that is coming under valid ratios. I can't remember the name of the add-ons, but even in Chrome add-ons, if we search, we can find a couple of tools which help in that. And just looking at the available like color scheme, immediately it gives a report like which area are not suitable for accessibility and what particular section is missing. And it also give a reference, okay, this is the particular guideline which is being violated.
Mm. That's great. Yeah.
You mentioned 508 compliance. What tool do you use to test? Because I found that none of the tools are consistent. There's no go-to place that says this is exactly what it should be. And we run the tool in Power Apps, and it gives us errors that are supposedly not 508 compliant. But I would think that a government instance of Power Apps would out of the box be 508 compliant, but it doesn't seem to be that way. And I don't know if we can do anything about it.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, what is the level? Because there's things like ARIA hidden, right, which is one of the things that tool Dan spits out at us. But a lot of times ARIA hidden is in place specifically for, because it shouldn't be read by a screen reader. And yeah, I guess if anybody has any recommendation on tools to use for 508 specifically, or what the best tool is from an accessibility, because it's almost like you were talking about, Yawer, about running the the out of the box stuff that Microsoft provides, but of course it's going to say that everything's compliant. But it's kind of, is there a better third party add-on or something that other people who work in the government space have used to kind of prove, I guess, to everyone that it is compliant, apart from just going to Microsoft and them saying it is?
Yeah, I think that is really correct observation, and I also experience a few times like for certain thing, one tool can, for example, I was using a few screen readers, and one screen reader might be able to read that, and another screen reader might be just failing there and indicating that is a sort of violation or lacking. That is really a challenge, and I think that is because as a community we are still going to that direction. But just like previously, we used to have we were not having standards for browsers, and there used to be multiple issues with browsers. So I think same is the story as of now for accessibility tools. Tools also needs to have some standards, but for a few things, I was using JAWS, so that was doing pretty much good job, and I can check. And there was another extension which was in Chrome that was also doing reasonably well.